Hey folks, how's it going? This is Iron Seagull here, back with another episode of my Sims 4 wishlist, where I talk about ideas that I'd like to see in The Sims 4 and how I imagine them being executed. So, as a longtime player of The Sims, a lot of the ideas that I have for The Sims 4 are things that I liked in previous games that I think need to return. But this one is different, though now that I've thought about it, I'm surprised no previous Sims games have done it already. My idea is to include a proper planning feature for guests, as well as when your current sim is about to be a guest at someone else's household. How I thought of this was that my grandma recently visited me for a few weeks, and it made me think about how The Sims doesn't have a proper system in place for having guests over for more than a few hours at a time. Sure, there's workarounds like temporarily merging your guests into your current household, but that means temporarily moving those guests out of their home, which can be annoying. And there's a club feature too if you own Get Together, but it's still meant to be more as a thing for a night out rather than an extended stay for like a week or more. So overall, I think this could just be made much more simple and user-friendly with a proper planning feature. There's two different ways I can imagine this feature happening, with one being the more likely method Maxis would take. This more likely method would be when you do the interaction to invite a sim over the phone, or asking the sim to hang out if the other sim is already physically nearby. Some sort of dialogue box would pop up letting you choose how many days you want them to stay over. There probably would be a limit as to how many days, but I think at least 2 to 3 weeks is a good number. The other way, which I think would be a more elegant but far less likely solution, is to give the calendar feature from Seasons to everyone in a free update, but the players without Seasons would not have the weather forecast or holiday planner. With the calendar, you'd have more flexibility, because you could easily plan a guest stay in advance instead of the guest always having to start their stay right away, like with the other method. You'd also be able to better line up their stay with holidays if you want to, since you can see them right there on the calendar instead of trying to remember, when are they, off the top of your head. Obviously, this is less realistic because then you're expecting Maxis to give us part of a really big selling point of Seasons for free, and it probably would take a lot of work to patch in this feature after the fact. So yeah, I do imagine the first method happening, even though there's a little less elegance to it. But with either method, after you finish inviting the guest over, they would come over, and there could be maybe some sort of indicator in the UI somewhere telling you how many days your guest has left before they need to go home, because yeah, you might not always remember, or you might switch to another household for a while and come back to your original household a bit later on. So I think it would be very handy to have something. Just don't have it be in the exact same place as where event goals tend to be, like when you're throwing a party, because then I could imagine that conflicting in some way. But yeah, I think there definitely needs to be some kind of reminder. And also, I just thought of this right now, maybe also implement something like that for vacations, because previous Sims games did have that, where you had a little timer in the UI and you could see how many vacation days you had left before you needed to go home. But for some reason, The Sims 4 doesn't have that, so yeah, it's kind of a similar line, I guess you could say. So I think that should also be put in. As for how I think this feature should be given to us, I think this one is pretty obvious. We get this for free. Don't put this into an expansion pack and make us pay for this. I think it really needs to become a part of the core game and a standard feature in all Sims base games going forward, however long it lasts. The Sims 5, Sims 6, and so on and so forth. Yes, this should just become a standard feature across Sims games. And I just think overall, this could be a game changer, really, at least in a very certain aspect, the social aspect, because I don't really have guests over too often when I play The Sims, but I think having a guest planner would really encourage me to do this a lot more often and have family over or have friends over, or even if we were just able to plan for like a whole day instead of the guests coming over for a few hours, like having extended play dates, and not just with toddlers but with children as well. And I think there's just so many possibilities that would be opened up by having a guest planner in The Sims 4. And combined with the ideas that I presented in my sleepover update episode of my Sims 4 wishlist, that could be really good. Like being able to assign beds to guests and being able to tell them when it's time to go to bed, and you can go to bed with them if you're like sharing a double bed with them. And just, yes, oh my gosh, yes. Combined with all that stuff, that makes me want this even more. I think this could be such an awesome thing that could really just help The Sims evolve a little bit more in the social aspect. I think there could be a lot of improvement made, and I think The Sims 4 has done a bit of that, especially around the time Get Together came out with the groups feature and clubs and such. But yeah, I think this could really improve that even more. There's definitely some ideas that they could take from the modding community, like with Tori going to bed right there. Like, that was all done through mods from Little Miss Sam. And there's another mod that I actually just realized existed today where you can even ask other Sims to cook for you. So I do also want to keep in mind that, yes, like, you can do all of this stuff if your Sim is a guest for someone else. So you can also assign the bed when you're over at your guest house, and being able to ask the host to cook for you, because they might not always get around to doing that while you're over there. And I mean, you could cook for them if you want to, but maybe the other Sim might not like you doing that. But one thing to keep in mind is that if you are playing as the guest, you need to keep track of how many vacation days you have, because you need to still go to work and do all that stuff. Though if you are inviting guests over, you don't need to worry about them getting fired just because you invited them over for a couple of weeks. And of course, this feature could work with inviting multiple guests over at the same time. I guess this is another way the calendar method would be a more convenient way of implementing this feature. But yeah, I mean, if your Sims want to have like their grandma and grandpa over at the same time for a couple of weeks, then you could definitely do that, or invite a bunch of friends over or a bunch of coworkers over for like some sort of retreat, then that can work as well. Another aspect which I think would make this idea technically a little bit more difficult to implement is to have this be compatible with group outings and vacations as well. Like, say if you are having relatives over for the week, you do want to be able to also have the choice of going out to a restaurant with them, for example, and not having having to re-invite your relatives after you finished having your meal and you go back home. And I think this would also be really good to have it work with vacation worlds as well. So if you do have some coworkers over for a week or so, and you really do want to make it like an actual retreat of some kind, then you could have outdoor retreat. You go to Granite Falls in the middle of that time, and you could still return home afterwards, and your guests would still follow you back. And another thing I just thought of that could be added onto this guest planner ideas, maybe this could also extend to service NPCs. Like, say maybe you can have a live-in gardener for 4 days or something like that, instead of just having them come back in the morning every day. Or you could do the same thing with the butler or a maid, or even maybe you want to have pizza delivered to your house every day for a few days straight. Then you could also do that. So that wraps up another episode of my Sims 4 wishlist. I've never seen anybody else talk about this sort of idea, but I think it's something that could benefit a whole lot of players. Before I made this video, I tweeted about the idea to see what the initial reaction would be, and I was really pleased that it was so well received. It was then I knew for sure that this had to join the list of the 30 other episodes of my Sims 4 wishlist that I've done. So if you're new here, I've got quite the back catalog of videos just like this one if you want to check out the playlist. So overall, that's pretty much all I have to say. So if you like this idea, be sure to spread it around. I really hope something like this makes it into The Sims one day. I feel almost as passionately about this idea as I do about cars or farming or university now, especially that I've talked so much about it. So be sure to leave a like or a comment or even subscribe, because it lets me know that you like my channel, my videos, and it helps you keep up to date more easily with my latest content from The Sims, Sonic the Hedgehog, and more. So I will talk to you all later, and have a great day. Thanks for watching!